Now we've started. Are you watching the video yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so hello. uh, this will be our first uh, Sunday special podcast, uh, as we've
Yeah,
decided to call
boy.
it.
Oh, that's the name of it. We're gonna have to work on that.
We're gonna have to work on that. Yeah. Um,
This is all new, ladies and gentlemen. And others. This is all new, so we're just slowly figuring this out, learning the ropes.
Absolutely. So if there's somebody new to this, you're definitely gonna learn with us. Um,
Mm, yes.
Now, it kind of took us a while to figure out what to talk about in this podcast. Um, but in the end, we kind of wanted to look into topics that um, we can really discuss. Um,
Yeah. So just to I guess introduce it a little, this Sunday special is less about just like
just
pure
to,
gaming
I guess,
and
introduce it.
nonsense and shenanigans, and a little more towards maybe a little more serious conversation, just like topics we find that are interesting that we actually thought to express our thoughts and share with everybody else.
Yeah. Um, so, what we're going to try and do in these podcasts is actually discuss things that we are interested in or that kind of grab our attention. Uh, and we are going to record them and upload the videos later on.
Yeah.
Every now and then we might play something light in the background. Uh,
So that you'd be able to watch that as well. Today, just
mhm.
issues with my internet are making that a little difficult. So I apologize for that.
Now, after a lot of thought, we actually decided to focus on a conversation that we had earlier this week. And by
Mhm.
conversation, I mean a heated argument that that got brought up. Uh,
Dan, you're stupid.
I know.
You're not supposed to say I know. You're supposed to call me stupid, and then it's supposed to be like just us getting pissed off at each other and never getting anywhere constructive.
Where's the fun in that? Um,
You're right. You're right. Adulting is not fun.
Now, what the conversation was about was charity in general, and
Mhm.
a big part of it was focused on this scenario of having a homeless person, and should you give money to them or food, or should you give anything to them at all? Uh, Alex, what did you think about that?
Of course, I always think that there's not one blind answer for this. Like, when is charity necessary or when isn't it? But in the case of homeless individuals specifically, I think that, and I have to be very clear of what I'm saying, that charity is extremely important and that we should do our best to help others. And I'll explain this in a larger framework. But by charity, I mean direct charity. I don't mean like giving to an organization. Of course, you can do that as well, but I think that it's important direct charity to like give to a homeless individual who is there in front of you.
Hmm,
That's my take on it.
right. Now, at the time, and it's a shame we don't have her with us, um, we had our friend Shawnee in the call as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and her point of view is that she wouldn't really necessarily give money, um, but she could give food and things of you know, immediate need to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting this right, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to get something wrong.
So, what we're going to be saying is what we recall and what we believe her point was. and eventually we'll move past that because we don't want to speak for other people, obviously.
Exactly.
But from what I recall, yes, her point was that she'd be more willing to give food or something specific as opposed to money itself.
Mm. Now, my stance was slightly more complicated because I'm more than happy to give either. However, I'm very wary of giving money, for example,
Yeah, of
because
course.
that gives a lot of power. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that I saw today is this series of videos about um, Kreia. And
Yeah.
if any of you aren't familiar, Kreia is a character, a very important character from the RPG game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And you can
Mm-hmm.
actually see the title over here. Uh, that game is on Steam. If anyone's interested, I would highly recommend it. It's a
I think
very
I
good
have
game.
that game too, actually.
I think you do. I don't think you've played it though.
Yeah, well, go on.
I think you really like it. Um,
I should get into it more. But go on, go on.
Now, Kreia as a character is actually the guiding force in the game, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people get very annoyed with her because she comes across as a preachy schoolmistress of sorts, and sometimes it's very annoying
Oh,
to
yeah.
try and do something good, and then she comes around telepathically and tells you off for doing something good. Uh, and sometimes you just get this feeling of shut up. you know, what would you have
Leave me
done?
alone.
Yeah, exactly. But what this person on YouTube, Papito Qinn, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce
Quinn.
Qinn. Yes, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. What he has done is he has created this series of videos on YouTube called Kreia's Conundrums. And anyone who is interested in philosophy in general, or just, these mind games, really,
Yeah,
would really
boy.
be interested in watching this. Because it talks about a whole lot of different topics, and Kreia is a character who um, let's just say she's not easy to understand. She
Isn't
seems.
there
Mm,
isn't there that one I'm sorry to interrupt. Isn't there also that one video that kind of just go like it's an hour and 30-minute long video that goes over like the wholeness of her own Jedi philosophy?
yes, there is. Okay, let's look it up. Kreia.
By all means. Yeah.
Kreia's philosophy. Yes, here it is. So, well, there's actually two interesting videos if you're interested in Star Wars stuff, but they act. One of them is more Star Wars focused than the other. Um, the one that is more Star Wars focused is this one, The Failure of the Great Jedi, which is
Yeah.
39 minutes long and is by an unnamed author on YouTube. uh,
Okay, but links will be attached. What I will say though is that despite these being kind of within the lore of these worlds, they are very applicable to real life philosophy, including moral philosophy. Like I know in Dante's Inferno, he gives a whole area of hell to people who don't take a side,
mhm,
which is very relevant in this video as well. So
yeah,
uh, if you're willing to actually see how it's relevant in real life, you'll find plenty of ways.
I agree. Um, it's Kreia actually gives a lot of lessons about how to treat others, and a lot of her her lessons to the main character are actually based around uh, the actions that he or she takes during their adventures. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is the other interesting video. It's called "The Philosophy of Kreia: Critical Examination of Star Wars." Again,
Which,
yeah,
no. I was gonna say, which is kind of a more holistic outlook of her throughout the entire thing.
yeah. So this is something that you should really watch if you have time to spare, because it is an hour and 50 minutes long. But it's full
Go
of various um, examples of
top,
things.
yeah. But today we
Let's
will be
see. Does
focusing on
this?
charity.
Oh, and it's actually by the same author who did the other video, so they're unnamed. I'll just give
Sweet.
the links later on.
And then we'll probably be covering several other of these topics involved in this, but today we're focusing specifically on charity and all that
Mm-hmm.
noise.
Now, what I want us to do, so that you guys see what we're talking about, um, we are not going to talk just about charity in general, but we're going to bring in this little tidbit from Kreia's Conundrums.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and as you're going to see in the video, it's about uh, how do you decide what to do? Uh, should you simply go ahead and do the first, follow the first compulsion that you feel when you see somebody in need? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not extremely long, it's 14 minutes long. So we're just going to
Yeah.
watch this. I do hope Twitch doesn't mute anything. um,
Yeah.
but uh, yeah, let's watch it and then we can talk about it.
Okay, cool.
Is a treasure trove of opportunity. Narshada is a treasure trove of opportunity to better understand Kreia. A few steps in, you can find yourself with 3 people who could use your help. 2 are obligatory, and 2 involve giving people money. The most iconic one being this one. There's been plenty of debate surrounding this exchange. In a game filled with gray, this section basically forces you into making a binary choice, black and white, all to teach the player something and to make the player better understand Kreia. If you don't bring Kreia, she talks to you telepathically instead. This is how you know that it's important. If you agree to give the money, Kreia tells you that this may have just made him a target by people who aren't as fortunate. He didn't earn it. He was just in the right place at the right time. What makes him so special? He doesn't deserve it. If you threaten his life to chase him away, Kreia tells you that the echo created could be one of more suffering as well. It's basically the old saying, misery loves company. Why does this keep happening to me? Why not him? Why not her? Why me? What makes them so special? When in reality they're probably going through the same thing he is, or possibly worse. But people tend to have tunnel vision in times of strong emotions. The man who's trying to help him understands that in the situation they're in, as cliche as it may sound, they have to stick together. Because let's say that the developers added a third option. You can tell him something like, wash my spaceship and I'll give you 50 credits. Here's 5 credits up front so you can buy the supplies. It's unlikely that he'll take the 5 credits and run, knowing that he has a job lined up for more credits. And the guy that robs him can't touch him now, because otherwise he would be shunned by the community, and the next time he's in trouble, no one is going to help him. Let's look at a pretty good real-life example of the first option that was caught on camera. This is from the show No Reservations by Anthony Bourdain. He travels to Haiti, and this is after the earthquake.
I mean, the day is almost over and she got a bunch of rice.
Right.
And then all those people around here, they are sitting here waiting for just a piece.
What would you do? Hungry kids and a hard-working businesswoman. A brief conference with producers, and I think, in this case, easy to make the situation better, right? decide we'll buy the lady out, pay full price for every order of food she can muster, and we'll feed them. Simple. Fill the bellies of some cute kids, a good-hearted expression of kindness. We all go back to our hotel feeling really good about ourselves, right? What happens is both predictable and a metaphor for what's wrong with so much well-intentioned aid effort around the world. Hungry people anywhere behave like hungry people. When you've got big kids and small kids, young people and old, many of whom haven't had a meal in days, in the real world outside of the commercial in our heads, people get whacked with a belt. A struggle to keep order against the natural forces of the world, the strong against the weak. We didn't think it through. We thought short-term, feel-good, obvious-seeming solutions. But there are no easy answers. And because of that, because we thought with our hearts and not our heads, it all turned to...
Altruism is not inherent to humans. It was done with a purpose. People you helped would be more likely to help you out later. It evolved from there, but the seeds are still visible. Some people feel obligated to help. I can't leave him hanging. I owe him. They say that sometimes, not even thinking about what the people around them would think, but rather what they would think of themselves. You could even argue that people give to charity, presumably without expecting anything in return, are considering feeling better about themselves to be the reward. Maybe. We may never know for sure.
You know, the immediate human inclination when you see hungry kids is, I will feed those kids. So I finish my soup, and I say, well, let's buy out the place. We'll feed all of these kids. Just what we did in Haiti. And as happens, things spin immediately out of control. The bigger kids shove the smaller kids out of the way. The grown-ups who are just as hungry come in and shove the big kids out of the way, and pretty soon you have a riot. And then you have someone stepping in to try to maintain order, which means beating kids with a stick. When this is what this, you know, a simple, maybe foolhardy, naive desire to take care of an immediate problem, hungry kids, led to unintended and very ugly consequences. You know, people beating other people. You know, a whole breakdown of, you know, there are consequences. You know, we try very hard to slip through places to do no harm. You know, to leave as light or non-existent a footprint as we can. But the fact is, there are all these unintended consequences. That's an obvious one. And a less obvious one might be, I go to a rice farmer's home with my small crew, no lights, no sound guy. We don't want to freak people out. We don't want people behaving unnaturally. We try to be good guests. But the fact is, we've come in and we've put this rice farmer on TV. We've paid him a pretty good chunk of money by local standards, and we've put him on international television. How do his neighbors feel about that? That might cause some friction. We've seen that also. We go to a small, struggling business that's really cool in a remote part of the world. It's the greatest bar ever. Just locals go. We put it on television. Suddenly all these tourists are showing up. It's not the same anymore. So look, we think about those things. We try to do right. You learn over time. But there is something destructive about the camera.
My grandmother is probably the most generous person I will ever know. I've heard countless stories of her just giving things away in situations where there were basically zero chance of her getting anything in return. She would go behind people's backs to help someone out. Now I know what you're thinking, and yes, it wasn't unheard of for her to be taken advantage of, but she's Catholic, a good Catholic, not the fire and brimstone kind, the love your fellow man kind. I love her for that. She's also a mean cook. I've been trying to figure out how she cooks pork chops to no avail, but that's a different video. I tried to follow her example, but now I live in a place where things like homelessness is not a top concern. It's still an issue. You see them around, but not frequently, and that's the heart of the matter. Look at the characteristics of Nashada. Large amounts of homelessness and unemployment. Organized crime runs rampant to the point where it's considered to be the only form of a quote-unquote government there is. Employment itself would most likely mean joining one of these criminal organizations. Association by itself means putting your life on the line because of rival organizations. Even then, getting such a job itself could prove difficult, as the local crime lords, whether it's the Huts or the Exchange, don't exactly have a positive human bias. What Kreia is trying to teach you here is not to never give to charity, or even that they always have to earn it somehow. The lesson here is detailed observation, nuance, and calculation. Especially for someone with power like the exile, the importance of looking at the bigger picture is damn near infinite.
The force binds all things. The slightest push, the smallest touch, sends echoes throughout life.
Kreia understands that you do not have a crystal ball. It is impossible for a human mind to predict every single thing that will happen in every single timeline that could possibly result with 100% accuracy. But it is your responsibility to try, and to try your best, even disconnected from the Force and its real life. As human beings, we have power. You're walking down the street, you got some money in your pocket, and there's a homeless guy with his hands out. Congratulations, you just found yourself within a position of power. Even that same homeless guy has power. In certain fashions, it's insignificant to your own, and in others, your powers are insignificant to certain others. Power is a spectrum, after all, and it comes in many forms. I recently heard a news report come out of the United States of America. A man running for Senate named Brian Ellison says that homeless people are constant victims of violent crime. His solution is to distribute pump-action shotguns to said homeless people so that they could defend themselves. Now, whatever opinion you may have on this, I implore you to do your best and think about all the possible consequences that such an action could have. But this is another video by itself. Personally, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the origins of his conclusions and what his thought process might be. Another story that came out of the United States over a decade ago now. It was reported that former President George W. Bush said something along the lines of, "I don't do nuance." At the time when I first heard this, I thought, won't or can't. But regardless, for a world leader to have such a stance, someone as powerful as the President of the United States, someone who makes decisions that produce a lot of echoes, if you will, for someone like that to not at least try to look at the bigger picture, disaster is inevitable. Maybe not for him, but for someone, somewhere, sometime. You may ask, why do people default to binary positions, black and white, right and left, us and them, me and you? It seems like it happens the majority of the time. I don't know. I guess I'd have to ask a psychologist. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say because it's easier. Black and white is simple. It takes less energy. I read an article once that argued that it's the same with racism. It takes energy to understand everyone as an individual. Easier to regard a group of people as all of them being the exact same person. I was returning to my apartment one day after visiting my brother. I had some loose change in my pocket, and I encountered a man with a cup, cocooned in whatever clothes he could find. It was cold. I buy almost everything with my bank card these days. Whenever I have loose change, I'm looking to get rid of it anyway. Here was someone who could use it more than I could. And like I said before, I live in a place where this kind of thing isn't too frequent. After taking everything into account, I determined that it'd be alright. But to be honest, sometimes I encounter women, sometimes with children, and that gives me pause. The increased possibility exists of there being someone behind the scenes. That's the thought that occurs to me at least. They could be abusing her and taking whatever money she's received. But if she comes in with nothing, that would only escalate her suffering. All I could do was mitigate. I couldn't solve anything, but it was something. So I gave her the money. Always remember that Kreia doesn't tell the exile to never give to charity. Her exact words are,
Be careful of charity and kindness.
be careful. A viewer.
Okay. So that was that.
Yo, yo.
Did you manage to watch all of it?
Yep, I have seen it all. I have seen the light.
You've seen the light. You've been educated.
I've been educated in the ways. I can now properly watch a 14-minute video. I am so happy with myself.
So yeah,
No, but
what do you think?
It isn't. I mean, it's a very interesting discussion, and I do agree with it. Like, this is why I wanted to expand it to charity as a whole. Charity isn't as simple as, hey, give and it'll be okay. I definitely agree with that first part. Especially with Anthony Bourdain, may his soul rest. It's complicated, man. It is.
Absolutely. Now, before anyone sort of, starts coming in and saying how Star Wars is completely different, let's put that out of the way first. That
Oh, yeah.
yes, in Star Wars it is definitely much more complicated because you have the Force, which connects absolutely everything, and
Although a spiritual individual would argue that that's not just a Star Wars thing. But anyway.
I agree. And sorry.
No worries.
The Exile, who's the main character in Knights of the Old Republic 2, he is Force sensitive, or actually he has a very unique position that he's called a wound in the Force.
Yay!
I know, it sounds great, doesn't it? But it actually
Such a hero.
puts that character in an incredibly unique position where that character is not influenced by the Force, but they still live in a world that is still controlled by it. So whether they want to or not, whatever they do, as Kreia puts it, will create those ripples.
Yeah.
So the influence there is actually very, very strong. Possibly stronger than any of us can do. But that extract that Bonito included was very interesting, I think, because the producer went to this very poor place.
Anthony Bourdain, yeah.
Yeah, and what they did and the way it transpired is actually very interesting. In that their act of kindness and charity actually caused a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And even on a more personal level, as he put it, if they went there with a small team to a small farm where they wouldn't stand out too much and things like that, it would still cause a lot of ripples for that personal family. In the way he put it, how would their neighbors feel about that whole thing?
Exactly.
And it could cause other problems down the line.
Mm-hmm.
It could even create enemies where there were none before.
I got you.
And that does happen actually in the game as well. That certain character who you help, as Punito said, you're forced. The game forces you to make a choice. You either help the person or you don't. If you do help them and if you do give them credits, Kreia says, "Why would you do such a thing?" And then together, because you're linked inside the game, you expand your minds and you stretch out and you see what happens afterwards, because he ends up running off with the credits. And what happens is he gets mugged. And he immediately loses those, and I think he gets killed as well. Simply because you did that simple act of charity. So there's a very interesting lesson there.
Like, I definitely understand. I definitely agree that there are. So you like, charity isn't as simple as like give something and everything will be okay. But it is also within one's powers of what they can do. So when it comes to a homeless person, the most I have the power to do is to give a little bit of money, because I myself am not a wealthy person. I don't have the means to start an organization and everything, or to my knowledge, you know? But obviously when it comes to people with more power, there are bigger things that can be done, and they have to be careful with what they're actually doing. It was the whole hobo with the shotgun was kind of funny, by the way.
It was funny. Actually, what I found interesting about that is how the Star Wars power, essentially, well, Kreia's lessons carried over into that example as well, which is why she's such a fascinating character. There's another portion of the game where she talks to a different character, one of your companions, and he is not force sensitive at that point. And Kreia asks him a very interesting question. I don't remember it exactly, but essentially it went down the lines of, what do you think a Jedi is without the Force? And the lesson she teaches him is that a Jedi without the Force, stripped of it, essentially becomes another man, a woman, a child. And she tells him that in some ways he is more skilled than any other Jedi, because he can survive in a situation where a Jedi might not.
Because he doesn't have to resort to the Force.
Exactly.
Whereas, no, I understand. Like, I understand. What I'm ultimately getting at, though, is going back to this notion of charity. First of all, we can only help to the means that we have the ability to help. I think we could both agree on that. That, like, if all you could do is, even for a spiritual person, even say a prayer, because they don't even have the money to really give away. And you know what? That in itself is an act of charity, because you're doing what you can. But if you're a billionaire, right, and you just dump a whole bunch of money on a person, you're unwisely using your means to help somebody.
Exactly.
And charity doesn't only go to like a homeless individual. Charity is a large topic that can spread to any person, any realm of society. when they are in the midst of a need. A rich drug addict, for a rich drug addict, the ability to have rehab or the ability to have like family there to support them in their recovery can be a form of charity of time and charity of energy. But it is how we put that to use that is important. So if I only have a fish, then I give a fish. But if I can have the time to teach a man to fish, that saying, then I do so. The like the instance with Anthony Bourdain and everything. The issue was that you have the means to actually dedicate to creating a lasting change. But instead you go the quick route and try to like easily fix everything by just dumping a whole bunch of whatever there. It's an action without wisdom, and any action without wisdom is always a dangerous one.
Exactly. And it's interesting that the speaker here, he brought up this example of how he sometimes saw women with children and how it made him think. It actually forced him to kind of consider a little bit more than just his instinct of altruism.
Yeah.
Because feeling charitable is a good thing, but acting rashly out of charity might not be such a good thing. Not always.
So I think, yeah, I think the thing about charity is it depends on like what the purpose of charity is. Charity isn't just to give something to somebody. That's not the point of it. The point of charity is to bring people to a certain level or to a certain state. Which is why I advise giving money to a homeless individual despite the risks that come with it. Because what you're trying to do essentially is you're trying to give a homeless person the means to get from lacking the ability to survive to just surviving. You're trying to get them to that base state of survival. But if you have more means, then you try to get them to be self-sustaining. That's another level that charity tries to work towards, So it's survival, self-sustaining, and then after self-sustaining comes the ability to progress, to actually like a person who could become educated and a person who could pursue their career goals and everything. Then obviously I'm oversimplifying it because I'm coming up with this at a moment's notice, but that charity in it for itself is kind of dumb. People have to wonder why. What do they want to do with the charity they're giving? What are they trying to accomplish? That's important.
There's another of Kreia's lessons here that it gives another nuance to kind of quote Panito here.
I don't do nuance.
Oh my god. I'm sorry to say this, but he's an idiot.
Our lovely leaders, everybody.
That's my opinion. Anyway. This thing about nuance.
Yeah.
It's it's this idea of struggle. We've actually talked about this before. You remember? Where?
Okay, remind me.
Well, part of Kreia's teaching about giving and charity, and especially pointless charity, unthought through charity, is that essentially what you do by thoughtlessly dumping money or power or simply saving someone from something that they could have gone through themselves strips them away from their struggle. She has a unique point of view
Well, no, that.
that is that everybody she's actually a
Mm-hmm.
character who really does not respect people um, in a large way, but she does see worth in everyone.
Yeah,
And
quite ironic.
yes, very ironic. Uh, and that comes from the fact that she sees everybody is going through um, a series of challenges. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, with every challenge that we go through, we we get stronger, sort of
Yeah.
a natural selection sort of thing. Um, and that's one of the reasons why she doesn't like force users that much,
Mm-hmm.
well, dogmatic ones at least, um,
Yeah.
because she sees as she sees force users as
Didn't she see
cheaters
him as like
essentially.
prideful and arrogant
Uh,
as well?
there's that, yeah.
But no,
But
I
she
get what
also
you're
sees
saying.
them
It's
as
like,
cheaters, that they're
yeah,
cheating through all these struggles by
it's
appealing to this outside force that's part of them.
yeah. No, it's like also when you write a book, you don't want to. You won't like, for example, magic systems in books. You don't
Yeah,
want it to be that magic is the quick fix to all,
yeah,
because you still want the struggle.
yeah. And
And that,
yeah, what happens is if we transfer that to real life, um, in a way, what's happening is, to go back to the homeless person and the person with money example.
mhm.
The person with money has a completely different path than the homeless person, and we don't know what the homeless person's struggles are, and we don't know what the
Yeah.
person with money has to go through either. But what's
Mhm.
happening is that if this homeless person uh, fixes up their life through some sort of um, journey, then they're going to come out of it wiser, inevitably.
Hmm. I get
But
you.
if somebody comes along and takes away that from them and somehow helps them to it in a not really in a thoughtful way, as in actually helping them,
Yeah.
guiding them along the journey, but actually taking the journey and doing it for them, um, that essentially robs that homeless person from the wisdom that they can gain.
Yeah, it's like so I definitely agree with the need that everybody has to go through their struggle. I definitely side with that, because struggle is how we grow and how we like mature and become better, or like more progress as human beings. But the issue is, like, where does charity fit in then? Does that mean don't give any help or don't give any aid or anything? I don't think that's what you're saying. I'm just
Hmm.
trying to put into context. No, the thing is, so for those individuals who use charity to try and remove struggle, it's because there's this like dislike towards struggle. It's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it. Yeah, I hate to like belittle it. Like, I hate to belittle it the way I am. I'm just kind of like brush stroking it, ignorantly.
Feel free to make fun of it.
But my point is that struggle isn't the issue. Tension is not bad. Tension isn't necessary. It's kind of one of the fundamental forces of how the universe itself works, through the mix of tension and order.
Mm.
The issue is, struggle isn't bad, but there are those cases where too much struggle, just like too much anything, is not good. Struggles that cannot be overcome through one's will alone, and those exist. Like, even in the case of homelessness, that can exist, or in the case of like addiction or anything. Without help, sometimes one cannot move past those obstacles and those barriers. And remember, we as human beings, we thrive on society and culture. I mean, society and interconnectedness, because specifically we're able to work towards helping remove each other out of situations.
Mm.
That's not to say that we are eliminating the struggle by doing that. It is to say that we are giving each other the means to be able to get past that struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what charity should be for. It's not to destroy or take away the struggle. It is to basically, so if I see like a huge slick wall that I can't climb up and someone throws down a rope and lets me climb it, I'm still putting in the work and the effort to get out of that ditch.
Mm-hmm.
But they are presenting me the means to be able to pull myself out of that struggle. Whereas before, there are no means.
Mm-hmm.
That's what charity should be about.
There's
Not getting rid of the struggle, but giving the means to help one overcome their struggle.
absolutely. And it's also important to think about what sort of struggle it is. Now, because Kreia is such a good example of all of this, um, she just brings up all these questions all the time.
Yeah, boy.
On that same planet, Nar Shaddaa, there's another situation where there's a woman who is separated from her loved one. Now, I don't have a very good memory of that case, so I'm kind of paraphrasing here. Basically, what happens is that they're separated, and the exile faces a choice to help her and bring them together, or actually do something that keeps them apart.
Okay.
What happens is, and it's very interesting, and any sort of, I think, any average person would absolutely feel like, yes, absolutely, we should help them get together, right?
Yeah, of course.
And yet, when you do that, if I remember correctly, Kreia criticizes you again. And she says, I think she begins with those words again, why would you do that?
Damn it, you can't do anything right.
Right? It's like this woman is never happy. And essentially what she brings up is that they have been put in that situation for a reason. And this struggle that they're facing is actually testing their relationship. And by solving it for them, you have actually made their relationship easier, which is not necessarily better.
Yeah, because by then you also, any bonds that would have been even strengthened by struggle are now weakened by ease.
Exactly.
And it doesn't reach the fullness that it could have because of the lack of struggle.
Yeah, so actually it just makes you think that sometimes what feels good in the good thing to do immediately might not be the best thing to do in the long run.
I definitely agree. You should always contemplate the way you're helping somebody and what it can truly mean to help somebody versus superficially helping someone. Like it'd be great if we all did our kids' schoolwork, because on one level we're taking away the struggle of having to do schoolwork and they can do whatever they want.
Exactly.
But we're also taking away their ability to grow intellectually and from education, because we have taken away that struggle, and you also then have a generation of people who don't know how to struggle.
Absolutely. It's a very I'm not sure if I said this before, because I was going to apply that philosophy to the example with the hobo.
Hobo with the shotgun.
Right.
Yo, that's next time I make a character class and whatever game. It's gonna emulate hobo with a shotgun. That is
I
it.
mean, doesn't every RPG sort of make you start out as a hobo with a shotgun?
Oblivion, you're just born, but they give you fucking two katanas, a short sword, and all this bullshit.
In your underpants,
Literally, right?
literally.
Skyrim. Oh no, a dragon's attacking us. You, prisoner, we have no knowledge or information about. Please take
Let's
this
go.
magic spell and take this axe, and let me trust you to be righteous.
Right.
No, the best one in Fable. Oh, you, whose family is just butchered in front of you. You're clearly gonna turn out to be a hero, so come with us. Although Fable's interesting.
Yeah.
Like Fable's more like we're just here to grant you special powers. We don't. It actually admits, will you like if you're gonna be good or evil, that's your choice. But by all means, do fucking you. I don't know. Please be good.
But yeah, that thing with the hobo, it going back to what Kreia said to Atten, that was the guy she was talking to. The person with money has a certain type of power, but but that homeless person, he has a different sort of skill. That person with money probably has never spent a homeless day in their life.
He has never known the struggle of surviving without means.
Exactly. So actually, you have these two completely separate classes of people that are trying to intermingle, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Of course, ideally, I think we could both agree that it'd be great if there were a world without homelessness, unless you chose it, because there are very rare instances of people choosing homelessness. So, but like ideally, we'd like a world where nobody's homeless by force. So I think we could agree on that.
Absolutely.
Maybe. Oh, okay, cool.
But yeah, so I think Kreia's words about that are really,
pretty wise indeed.
It's what it boils down to. Be careful with charity, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, behind everything, have wisdom. Understand why you're doing it. Like, if you're doing charity just because you think charity is good, then, I mean, yeah, charity can be good, but it can also be pretty fucked up. Like, nothing's good. Like, I don't know if there are things that are good in virtue of themselves, you know?
Well, what happened was that, going back to that example of the producer who went to Haiti.
Anthony Bourdain?
That's his name? Bourdain? Okay.
Bourdain, yeah.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, he actually committed suicide, like.
Did he?
Not too long ago. He
That's sad.
committed suicide. It is, yeah. But anyway.
Well, what happened there is that he essentially went into a situation where the struggle that people had, so that this struggle for food, was actually keeping them moral in a way.
I wouldn't say that.
Well,
I'd be careful to say that.
Okay, I guess what I mean is that there was a certain sort of empathy that arrived with that struggle, with the hunger, where they kind of had to empathize with each other. But when he bought out, when he paid for all the food that was given out, and essentially made the food free, what happened was that this struggle was taken out, and so anarchy began. And so everybody, thinking that this food is going to be gone, wants to get as much of it as they can. That's the way I saw it. From
Oh, I guess I
understood it.
I guess I interpreted it a little differently. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I just think that like everybody's struggling. You can't really do much about that. Like it's not like the person next to you has the same amount, but like the moment somebody comes by who has an abundance of something that everybody else is lacking,
Mm.
then their need and their hunger, for lack of better words, and that fits well in this situation, will overtake their care. You know, self-preservation over over mutual preservation.
Yeah, it's
So
like
that's how I saw it.
well, the thing is, they didn't turn against the producers. They turned against each other. So
Yeah, because the yeah
they had to be people there who, well, suddenly there didn't seem to be a need for them before, or as much need of them. But then these people had to appear who had to keep the peace, and between all these people, um, because they began to struggle and to fight and to argue, and even push children away and things like that.
yeah,
Uh,
because like everybody's hungry and there's
mm,
food, so
which is
I'm
free now,
hungry.
suddenly.
Yeah, there's food that I can get, so I'm hungry. So my next task is how's the fastest way I can get food, and
Yeah.
whoever is beneath me on the hierarchy get out of the way. You know,
Hmm. Um,
I mean, it's unfortunate, but
yeah, and it's just, as Bourdain said it, he learned something that day,
hmm
which is very good. um, but yeah, i this is a really deep topic. Uh,
yeah, yes, it is. I mean, because like charity is this one thing that everybody, and like I said, I'm totally for charity.
I
Like
mean,
one thing
you saw what happened. It's something people feel really strongly about.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like for example, one thing I disagree with in that video was when you said that humans aren't naturally altruistic. I honestly think it's the opposite
yes,
way.
I agree.
Like, like the only reason we ever reached this state of of modernity is because we do have a natural altruism that
Mm,
just gets subsided by like a culture that says think only for yourself. You know,
absolutely.
we're not. We're definitely not just instinctual beings to learned beings as well. So what we learn may hold more weight than what we might be inclined to.
Yeah, this is a
But
certain thinking that comes with um, evolutionary thinking. That,
yeah,
somehow this altruism has to come about on its own.
yeah. But
Which is, I think this is a good place to add that you are the evolutionist in our pair. I'm
oh yeah.
and I'm the person who doesn't believe in biological evolution. Uh,
Okay, so yeah,
so yeah,
there are distinctions between me and my good bro Stan here. He's a devout Christian. That includes like the idea of creationism and whatnot.
and I'm sure we've just turned half of the community out there, or at least
No,
half
no,
against me.
no, 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 no. Because like,
We'll
okay,
see.
so don't leave yet. For those of you who side with him, you have his side of the whole thing. I, on the other hand, while I consider myself spiritual, so I may not appeal to an atheistic audience, I do obviously believe in evolution and the current models of creation of the universe. I do have like certain problems, but only because I am a philosopher as well, where I consider myself an aspiring philosopher. And so I'm prone to like questioning everything. But anyway, that being said, that yeah, like altruism is an integral part of like who we are as beings. You can't even be like an intellectual society without the altruistic urge to share information.
Mm,
You
I
know,
agree.
and like we have like natural tendency. Like we do show instances where we will, for people we care about, we will throw our own lives into danger for another. Without thinking about it. I don't care if people say, "Oh, it's because you feel this satisfaction and everything." No, there is not even a second to think about what the repercussions are going to be. You just act on like the purest you, and you do what you do.
Do you know? Do you know what I just realized? It's
What
totally
did you
off
just
topic.
realize?
Uh,
What did you just realize, my good pal
People
buddy?
still haven't seen you at all. You know what? You should put
Yeah,
a picture up on your Discord.
I don't know what a picture is.
So
I don't believe in
so at least
I don't
there's a flashing thing of you out
I
there.
don't believe in 2D images. I want you all to see my game controller of Doom.
But
No,
yeah,
I get a picture up.
and we kind of need to be altruistic to survive. And
Yeah,
I believe that this idea, and I kind of blame National Geographic for that,
let's go,
because
Nat Geo. Stan will
um,
take you on.
uh, these nature channels, they portray the animal kingdom as 100% savage, and nature is portrayed as being completely heartless and bloodthirsty and survival of the fittest sort of thing, when
Yeah,
actually there are a lot of examples when animals are being kind and are being altruistic, even if it is within their own kind, but sometimes even to other kinds, especially
yeah.
humans.
No, yeah. There was that. I forgot that whole thing about like this seal that was on a piece of ice, and orcas were trying to get to it.
Hmm,
And orcas are very good at hunting.
they are.
They are very smart and they're very tactical. And so if y'all don't know by now, orcas are one of my favorite animals,
Hmm.
if not my favorite. But there's this, I think it was a humpback or a blue whale that comes out of nowhere and protects this seal from these orcas.
Hmm.
And this is like a interspecies thing. Some people
Yeah.
believe it was maternal instinct, and I'm sure that there is maternal instinct going on. There's also an ability to empathize between, especially amongst social animals.
Hmm. Uh,
So like,
it's
yeah, nature isn't this savage. Sorry to
no, it's
interrupt.
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna well, here, you've complete your thought. Let me not be a rude ass.
Well, I was just gonna say that yeah, there's savageness in there, uh, and there is that part where animals can be really good killers when they need to be, but usually it's not from you know malice. Uh, you know, they kill because they have to.
Yeah, it's a survival
Sometimes.
thing. No,
Uh,
no, for the most part, it's a survival. Like animals don't really kill and hunt for trophies or for
hmm,
like there will be game and sport in killing, but it won't. It's not purely for that. It's more like a subset. Like I remember seeing this video where orcas were tossing around this dolphin carcass like as a game. It was also to teach uh, the younger members of that pod how to hunt and everything. So, and it's not like they just left it out there as game. They also
hmm.
ate it. So it's yeah, there
And
can
it's
be
because they
sport.
don't have a choice either. You
Yeah,
know, some creatures in this day and age can't survive without eating, um,
I
which
think all
means
creatures
which
can't
means
survive
killing.
without eating. Oh,
uh,
okay. I think a lot of creatures
that's
can't survive
that.
without eating.
Yeah. let, let's
I think
specify that.
Stan, yeah. Even if I'm an evolutionist and you're a creationist, I think we can agree that
We
everything
can
needs to
agree.
eat.
But yeah, um, it's like it's out of necessity, and it's not what happens most of the time. Actually, when
Hmm.
creatures are well fed, they're much less aggressive and much more tame. Um, Nature is actually surprisingly tame when when things are fed.
When needs
Uh,
are met, then like the thing is, nature isn't. It's like a misunderstood order, honestly,
Again,
as opposed to being.
I do blame National Geographic for that.
Damn you, Nat
Because
Geo.
uh, because I'm just saying that because that channel runs very often on TV
Okay,
here at my
yeah.
place. So I
Okay.
see the shows that go on from morning till evening sometimes, and it's always the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing because killing and killing
Yeah.
and killing and killing from
Well,
from the time
yeah,
the
yeah.
sun rises from the sun to when it sets. And of course, you're kind of going to leave that with a certain impression.
No, I completely get you. Okay, so we now established that Stan and Nat Geo do not go together very well. They are
Sworn
at
enemies.
fisticuffs. Oh wow. Okay, fine. I wasn't going to take it that far, but I guess you did. So from
uh,
the mouth of the man himself.
there's a T-shirt that says "National Pornographic."
This fucking guy. Okay, Stan, your mind's starting to wander a little. But no, I do agree. Like, yeah, even like nature in itself isn't this very singular, everything's out for itself existence. I mean, things look out for their own survival to survive, but they don't just act as if not in a like there is a social harmony
Mm.
even within nature that allows ecosystems to thrive and flourish and all that. There's a harmony and an equilibrium uh, that is undergone.
And
Humans obviously break that
everything.
equilibrium, but yeah.
Just to add to what you're saying, things seem to know what their place is. uh, so it's like they don't infringe on each other when they don't have to.
Yeah. Of course, we don't see gazelles going up to lions being like, I know it's dinner time, guys, so
Exactly.
let me do what you're gonna do.
No one wants to be dinner, that's for sure.
Like the gazelle, like a warthog just comes out with like some sort of apple it mysteriously found in Africa in its mouth and just
Uh-huh.
like lays there and like, okay, I'm
Dig
here.
in.
Lays on its stomach. Let's do this, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the list.
Let me ask you a question.
Ask away.
Are you not going to get your laptop tonight?
My laptop is currently not in service.
Right. Very well.
Okay.
But yeah,
But I think this first podcast went pretty well.
I think so too. And I think it's going to make a good upload. We've
Yeah, boy.
officially come up to just over 1 hour.
Cool. I think that's a good limit for it.
Hmm.
For now, unless like a conversation gets really in depth that like we're like, oh,
Right.
we're gonna have to have part 2 to part 5, and then
I
we'll just
mean,
put here.
if anything more comes up, we can do,
I got you.
continuations. But yeah,
Sounds good,
this
man.
is going to go on YouTube. Um, we'll
Yeah,
set up the
boy.
YouTube
So
channel. I'll put it up there and I'll put down the links to
the
the videos that we mentioned.
subscribe, hint, hint.
Yep, definitely. Remember to subscribe and follow and comment down below.
And clearly, we have to work on the intros and exits to our videos. That
Definitely.
is a clear thing.
I have made a short intro that we can start putting in. But you know,
Cool.
one thing at a time.
I got you. Anyway, so thank you all for joining on this. If you enjoyed, by all means, if you have any comments or anything, feel free to share. And see you next time around.
See you next time.
Bye bye.